Welcome to Old Red Barn Productions. In this video, we're going to show you how we replaced the flooring in our Lund Fishing Boat. In our preparation for this project, we couldn't find a good how-to video on how to replace the floor of a Lund Fishing Boat, so we decided to create one ourselves. Join us as we discover the many challenges of replacing a boat floor. To begin, I always start with safety first. This project is challenging enough to warrant safety precautions. A couple general reminders before you start this project. Prepare the work area for the type of work you'll be doing. We used our garage and committed the entire garage space to this project. In the boat, we removed all seats and accessories. We wanted to create as much space as possible. All this was in preparation to simply remove 3 floorboards. Initially, this project seems pretty easy. Remove and replace 3 floorboards. But in reality, get ready to be challenged. Just a review of the equipment we use tells a story. We use so many different tools, and the equipment that we did use probably wasn't the perfect tool for the job. In review of the project, our attitude became, do whatever you need to do to make this work. The equipment we did use is shown in the slide. Step 1 was simple. Remove the middle board. The screws all came out like they should, and the board stayed intact. One major item to note is that once you do remove the middle board, your gas tank is exposed. This required us to use spare boards to create a safe place to stand or kneel while working on the board. Removing the passenger side floorboard was much more difficult. Once we removed the old vinyl, we saw that the board was in bad shape. The board was wet and moldy. The screws were rusted in place. We were not going to be able to remove this board in one piece. Each screw was difficult, and at times we had to rip the board up from the attached screw. When finished, the original floorboard was lying on the floor in many separate pieces. Removing the driver's side floorboard was even more challenging. First, we had to address the driver's station issue. We tried to remove the station from the side of the boat, but soon realized that this option would require us to reinstall the station, which would not be easy. So instead, we decided to suspend the driver's station from the ceiling. We used ratchet straps to connect to ceiling hooks to create the suspension. This worked well and was a good plan. Once we ripped off the floorboard vinyl, we discovered the board was extremely wet. This caused the majority of screws to be rusted in place. We tried screw extractors and had limited success. The floor was so bad that it would easily break apart when we lifted the board up. So we just left as many screws in as we needed to just to move on. We just wanted to get that crappy board out of our boat. Our floor removal strategy ended up being get the floor out any way possible. We used every trick we could think of to remove that floor. Trial and error was our best approach. Also, if you didn't wear gloves, you'd get cut. It was that physical. The floor removal was hard, and you had to be patient. Any progress was good progress, and eventually the floor was removed. Quite a few life lessons in this project, but that's for another video. Now that the floor was out, we could take a good look at the subfloor. What we saw was that the boat was in pretty good shape. This is also when we removed the screws that were still intact. The best method to remove these rusted screws was to break the screw head off with a vice grip and then drive the shank through the metal frame with a hammer. This required a very aggressive approach, and after a few successes, we got quite good at it. After the screw removal, we thoroughly vacuumed the subfloor. Once the subfloor review was completed, we were ready to start working on the new floor. We used marine plywood to create the new floorboards. This process just became old school carpentry. Measure, draw lines, measure again, adjust lines if needed, and cut. We used the circular saw to cut because it was all we had. A table saw would have definitely made things easier, but in the end, we got the job done. In cutting the board, I kept my measurements on the plus side. I knew this would create some necessary trimming, but I prefer too big before too small in fitting the boards. In the picture, you can see the passenger sideboard needed to be trimmed. This took about 5 attempts until I got the dry fit I wanted. It's important to note that in your final dry fit, remember to factor in the extra space needed between the boards for the vinyl. Once the dry fit looked good, we removed the boards and applied several coats of varnish on the entire board. When the varnish was dry, we focused on determining the location of the 3 4.5-inch seat holes that were to be drilled into the boards. This was a measurement that had to be accurate. If the hole location is off, the seat will not settle into the hole in subfloor as it should. To complete this cut, I purchased the 4.5-inch hole drill. The other option was to use a skill saw, which I did not want to do. The marine plywood is not easy to cut and would be very challenging for a skill saw blade. After the holes were cut, we did one last dry fit to make sure the measurements were correct. It fit like we hoped, and that was a big relief. With the carpentry finished, we adjusted our scale set to upholstery. The objective was simple: attach the vinyl to the floorboard. This project is definitely a two-person job. We use contact cement on both the vinyl and the board. This is not complicated, but take your time. Our biggest concern was making sure that we applied the vinyl evenly enough to completely cover the front and sides of the floorboard. Our vinyl application directions are listed on the slide. Installing the floorboards was our moment of truth. Had we succeeded in making 3 compatible floorboards? We started off on the driver's side first because of the driver's station. We wanted enough room to maneuver the board when fitting it into place. We made sure that it was a snug fit under the station and along the side panel and up against the stern. The middle board was next and was a simple fit that just needed to be put in place. The last board was the passenger side board. We knew this was going to be a very tight fit. We started by leveraging the length of the board into the open space. Once in place, we used a crowbar to leverage the middle bar to force the sideboard into the side wall. When it finally fit together, a few knuckle bumps were exchanged. The last 2 steps involve attaching the floorboards and doing a revinyl on the battery door. When attaching the floorboards, I used a power drill to simply drill a hole, followed by drilling a wafer drill point screw through the floorboard into the subfloor. The wafer point screw is recommended for this type of project. While I was attaching the floor, Chris was doing a revinyl of the battery door. This was not a difficult job, but required close attention to detail. The details of the revinyl are available on the slide for your reference. The total cost of this project ended up a little over $550. We are pleased with the final cost and realize that we saved a good deal of money by doing it ourselves. The plywood was high quality and the vinyl is from a reputable company. I did not look for any bargains. I just wanted the best products on the market. In our final review of this project, we know that the floor is not perfect, but it does look pretty good. In fact, I think this floor will last longer than the original floor. Looking back, we learned a lot. We wish we knew then what we know now. It would have made things a whole lot easier. But that's why we made this video. Now you know also. Thank you for viewing our video, and we're excited to get this old boat out on the water where it belongs. Signing off from Old Red Barn Productions.